Thanks, Minister. Thanks, Minister, for your presentation. I won't be long. I'm not a fishing expert by no means. Could you explain, for a lot of people that would say watch the different media's reporting, we see ships coming from Australia, different parts of the world, massive fishing liners or fishing ships that would mop up more in half an hour than what we'd certainly do with 100 boats here in Ireland. Why is the EU tolerating, or Ireland, or the rest of the EU tolerating that? That's my first question. And my second question, if there's a drastic cut, say Mr. Barnier, if he agrees a drastic cut to the amount of fish that Ireland can fish in the UK waters, are you going to accept that in an overall package of an agreement, or are you going to veto it?
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Deputy Fitzmaurice. At the moment, any boats that would fish within the EU waters would have to be authorised to do so, and would also have to have quota to do so, and would be subject to oversight by the respective bodies for the national bodies in terms of managing and control of those waters. So, for example, any boats, Deputy Fitzmaurice, that would come into fish in Irish waters would be subject to the oversight of the SFPA and also of the Navy, and are only permitted to fish if they have the right to be, the permission to be there in the first place, and also quota to fish in that area, and are subject to the control and regulation of our respective authorities. Any decisions around sizes of vessels would be something that would be up for discussion as part of the Common Fisheries Policy, and would be a matter to be discussed and debated at that point in time. But certainly, as things stand, you must have quota, and you must have the right to be in the waters in the first place if you're in order to fish there. In relation to the outcome of negotiations, our absolute focus, Deputy, is on ensuring that the outcome is a good one. A no deal, let's be under no illusions that a no deal Brexit would be a really bad one for fishing, as it would be for the rest of our economy as well. So it is really important that we do work to ensure that there is an agreed outcome, and one that actually is good for our fishing sector as well and protects its interests in every way that it is possible. And that has been our absolute focus, and my focus as Minister, and continues to be our focus in all engagements we've had, and is the clear engagement that we've had with Mr. Barnier's team as well. But there's no doubt that a no deal, which would be what you suggest could be the outcome, that would be really damaging for fishing, would mean in terms of access, massive challenges, and also in relation to quota share. So an agreed outcome, and one that is positive for the fishing sector, is our absolute priority.
My question though was that your department, this is what I'm trying to establish, at what stage do you say this isn't acceptable? If the British says there's going to be a 50% cut to all EU vessels to our waters, at what stage has your department decided, is it at 20%, is it at 30%, is it at 50%, that you won't accept any bigger cut to the fishing sector in your department?
Well, the discussions are being conducted by Mr. Barnier and by the European Commission on behalf of all Member States. And in terms of all of the 8 Member States working together, we have emphasised the importance of solidarity in holding a very strong line in relation to protecting quota and protecting access. Obviously, we then communicate clearly and input to Mr. Barnier's team, and I think he's very clear on the absolute importance of ensuring that quota share is protected and that access is protected, and of tying the negotiations to other aspects of the free trade agreement. So there isn't anything we can do more than that, other than to hold that very strong line and to work in solidarity to ensure that the EU position is strong in relation to ensuring a good outcome for fishing. Deputy Fitzmaurice.
What I'm asking is, have you a bottom line that you're not accepting for the fishing fleet in Ireland if it goes below a cut of 20% or 30%? Has our department decided, and you as Minister, have we decided that that we will say we're not accepting this, or is it whatever happens, happens if
Well, as I pointed out in my previous contribution, I mean, what the UK are looking for is 80% of what EU fleets would fish in UK water, and looking for to retain and return access entirely to their own fleet only. So that's what they're looking for. Obviously, as I said, our clear position has been to maintain the quota stocks that are there and maintain access. And that's the only guidance that we've given in relation to our objectives in terms of the outcome of the negotiations, and we're fighting hard in every way we can to ensure that that is the outcome.
Sorry for the false start.
No, you're okay, Chairman. Thank you very much, and I'd like to welcome the Minister and his officials to the meeting, and I apologise for being late and I missed your opening statement. Just a number of questions, and I'm kind of going to I have to say, this is probably one of the most challenging, difficult times for the fishing industry. Between protecting our own quotas and Brexit are the two of the major challenges that we face. And like especially Brexit, I think I'm going to stick on that for a moment. Minister, maybe if you could tell us, I know I've been contacted by a number of people within the fishing industry, both people who are out fishing and people within the industry on the island of Ireland here, where there's a huge spin-off from the whole fishing industry, and they are very, very concerned about the Brexit negotiations. Could you tell us the conversation that you've had with Michel Barnier so far, and what is your bottom line, and what did you stress that your bottom line was in the conversations that you had with him? I know that you had a Zoom call with him or an online meeting with him there, maybe because last Friday week or whenever it was. But, what was your bottom line? What is Ireland's acceptance of the Brexit negotiations? I know this is a European issue, but I presume you kind of set out Ireland's bottom line on this, on the Brexit negotiations on fishing.
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Keogh, and you're absolutely right. I mean, it's a really crucial time for the sector, and it has significant implications for many, many years ahead. And our absolute priority has been to protect the fish stocks and fish allocations that we have, the fish quotas that we have. We want our fishermen to be able to continue to fish, and for that not to be diminished. And in terms of our engagement with Mr Barnier and the solidarity that we've built up with the other 8 member states as well, that has been the position across all those 8 member states. And in terms of how the engagement with the UK is happening, that we want to protect access to the British waters, and we want to protect the quota allocation that we have, and that in doing so, importantly, the ties between the other aspects of the free trade agreement and fisheries is absolutely essential. And listen, we very much trust that Mr Barnier will fight hard and has been fighting hard in that regard, and it's going to be really, really important in the next number of days as well that that engagement that we've had at all times with Mr Barnier in terms of emphasising the importance of protecting the quota and access, that remains central in terms of his engagement in negotiations with the UK.
Failing that we do, the deal is struck over between now and the end of the year on the 1st of January, okay, we have a no-deal Brexit. What are the immediate effects for the fishing industry here in Ireland that are fishing in British waters at the moment? And as you know yourself, there's a huge 34%, I think was the figure you mentioned yourself, that our total fish caught comes out of British waters. What's the immediate effect, fallout, from the 1st of January if we have a no-deal Brexit?
Well, I mean, in terms of, we have to see what the agreement is in the agreement first of all. But obviously, if you look at what the British are looking for in relation to access to waters and in relation to their demand, negotiating demand as is commented on publicly in relation to seeking to retain 80% of what EU vessels would fish, then that would have a very significant impact on our fishing fleet. But there's much, I mean, the point we've made at all times is that there is much more to the fisheries or to the Brexit and future relationship negotiations than fisheries. I'll bet fisheries has been one of the most contested aspects, and it's crucial that those other aspects that it is taken in the round and that the other parts of the free trade agreement are tied tied in to it. And in that regard, that if the British want access and UK wants access to energy markets, for example, in the EU, that the fact that there a common access in relation to waters and sharing of stocks, that is equally important for us as energy may be for them, and that it needs to be a rounded and balanced free trade agreement. And in agreeing that it protects our interests in relation to fish stocks, fish quotas, and water access.
Absolutely. I think there's a huge amount of compromise that is needed here from the British government, because they are trying to get into other markets, let it be banking, let it be energy, and there's other areas. But fishing is definitely, and I absolutely take your point 100%. Do you have your annual fishing quota negotiations at the end of the year coming up? Like, that's going to be very difficult with Brexit. If you're going into those negotiations that we're not sure what the full fallout of Brexit is, like, what are your plans around those negotiations if there's no deal by then? And I'm sure usually our fishing negotiations around coming in the next two weeks, they're usually go up right up onto Christmas. And like, what are your priorities going into those talks? Maybe with a deal or with a no deal. Maybe if you give me on both scenarios, if you understand where I'm coming from.
Well, listen, we very much hope that it's with a deal, Deputy, and hope that we will see a deal in the next short period of time. It's certainly far from ideal that there is that lack of clarity and certainty at the moment with regard to the outcome of the negotiations. Hopefully we will know by the EU Council meeting as to what they will be. As I outlined in my comments to previous speakers, the assessments that we've carried out have been done on the basis of the ICES scientific advice, so that we've been able to carry out our scientific or impact assessments on stocks, etc., to make preparations for the EU Council meeting. Listen, if there's a no deal, that'll be the member states will have to come together and deal with that at that point in time. But certainly, I hope that it will be on the basis of a deal that we will be able to, and one that will be a good one for fishing.
Just, I'm very conscious, Minister, just the last point. Like, I come from, there's Wexford, there's other counties out there that have bigger fishing communities than what Wexford have, but like the fishing community that we have is based in predominantly in Kilmore Quay, and like when you take the processors, the engineers, the garages, everybody into consideration, like, they do depend on this industry in a huge amount of communities right across our coastal communities, and I think the fallout of Brexit will have a bigger effect for people on the eastern seaboard than it will on the western seaboard. Like, fishermen have told me that just, like, they don't want to be steaming from Kilmore Quay right around to the western side of Ireland going to fish, because there's the increment of huge additional cost and diesel and everything like that, and time steaming and everything like that. So I know that you're very conscious of that, and I would ask you, Minister, to take that into account, the effects of the eastern seaboard fishermen, and because it is a huge concern in small rural communities that they do totally depend on the fishing industry in there, and like, a lot of strides have been made over the last number of years, and I've worked closely with Minister Coveney when he was Minister for Agriculture, and with Minister Creed, and I know we can do the same again here, but to be very conscious of that in the further negotiations. Just on the SFPA and the arrests that have been made over, I'm not sure if you have any specific figures of any arrests that have been made, say in the last year with fishermen and with boarding of vessels and everything like that, and like, is it up or down on previous years?
Thanks, Deputy Keogh. Now, listen, I mean, I fully recognise the importance of access to UK waters, particularly for fishermen on the south east coast, and that's been, we've been very cognizant of that at all times, and certainly in relation to the national position that's taken in relation to retaining quota share and access, that would be very much an outcome that is essential for those fishermen. In relation to the SFPA, I don't have those figures to hand today. Obviously, the SFP it is separate. It operates statutorily, legally separately from the minister, but certainly I think we could arrange for a note for me, or a note for you with answers to those questions.
Okay.
Thanks.
Colin.